Hello, hello. I thought I'd just get started a little bit earlier today. Um, and thank you for coming along. I know it's probably, for a lot of you, I've had to change the timing to um, probably a bit of a weird time, considering that most of you might be sleeping now. But for us in Melbourne, it's 6 p.m. So thank you for coming along. For those of you who are here or maybe possibly joining in a moment, or if you're watching afterwards at home as well, that's also a great thing. So I'm going to just go through a few of probably just a few paintings that I've done in the past for those of you who haven't seen some of the paintings that I've done before. But today is a special request. As you can see in the reference photo here, it's a request from Keith Richardson. So he's one of my friends and viewers here who recently did a bit of a trip to Italy, and he has very graciously given us a couple of photos. Well, more than a couple. There was probably like 100 or nearly 200 photos in there of some of his travels. So I found a couple in here that I thought they were fantastic, and I'm going to cover one of them today. I thought I would attempt two, but we'll see how we go. I think we'll stick with one. I don't want to overwork myself, but thank you for coming along. And if you are here and you're watching along, do let me know in the chats. How you going, Solan? Solan Beverly says, we'll have to try and catch up. Yeah, no problem. I think it's probably a bit late for you, isn't it, Solan? And for a lot of people, this might be a bit of an awkward time. But for me, it's probably the only time during the day that I can actually do them. I don't want to sort of do them too late as well for my time, otherwise I kind of get a bit tired the next day. But if you're new here and you're watching, do leave a message in the chats, and there's going to be much less people watching along this time round because it is a bit of a funny time. But that just means that if you are here, you can ask away any questions, and I'll get back to you pretty much straight away. So without going into too much detail, I'm just going to show you some of the previous paintings that I've done. I've got a new camera, and the good thing about this camera is that I can actually zoom in, and that's going to allow you to just get a little bit more of an indication of some of the close-ups and some of the details that I put in for my watercolors. So as you can see here, this is one of the last demonstrations, probably not the last one, but maybe one of the last in the last three demos that I put together. And this year's a landscape of Bhutan, and I've got another one here. Just zoom out so you can sort of see what's going on there. So that's a nice little sort of country style scene there. Got a few others, and just for you to get an indication of the style that I paint in. I tend to paint in a pretty loose style, especially when we're talking about landscapes. When I paint portraits, I spend a bit more time trying to make sure that I've got enough details in there. So I tend to paint with a more detailed style with portraiture. But with landscapes, I love to just change things around a little bit and have a bit of fun. So probably the closest thing to what we'll be painting today, I've pulled out some of these Italy scenes that I've done in the past, sort of Venice scenes there. Nice dark contrast. It's another one of Venice, and here as well. So I did like this type of reflected light down here, especially with these nocturne kind of scenes. So I was hoping to get something similar in, but perhaps a little bit more detailed, with just some more nuance in it. So let's go ahead, and I'm gonna get started. Just put this away. The reference picture up. So if you're watching along, bring that reference picture up on the side. And what you can do is actually have that on the same screen as the demonstration. Not the demonstration, but kind of at the side of the screen, and then you have the video playing on the other side of the screen. It'll be a lot better for you in terms of the drawing, just so that you can see what's going on. You can see there's a few people on YouTube, there's a few on Facebook. Thank you for coming along, and welcome. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments, and also, yeah, just let me know where you're watching from as well. If you're new here, too, I'd always keen to hear where people are from. And there's let me see who else is here. There's oh, Patricia's here. So hi Darren, I can't stay out for any longer. Happy New Year. Been checking your Instagram page, see what's happening, and we'll try to catch class in the near future. Don't forget to include us ladies in the composition. You're never gonna let me go for that, Patricia. Yeah, I'll do my best. You'll be able to watch it afterwards. But yeah, thanks for dropping in, and Happy New Year's to you as well. Hope you've had a good one, and best wishes for this year. Hopefully it's a little bit easier for you guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started with the sketch. I've got a pencil, just normal sort of pencil here. It's nothing special. It's a 1.3 millimeter lead, so it's probably a bit thicker than the other pencils, but tend to go with these thicker leads at the moment because I don't know. I find that it helps me to loosen up a little bit, focus less on all the smaller details, and allow me to get those. Just wait to basically the end of the painting when I've got some time, the smaller brush to get in those details. Sometimes you can get a bit bogged down with the drawing, and it's so important to make sure you've got a good drawing, but at the same time, you got to make sure that you're not overdoing it as well. Now, this is probably a little easier composition. Now, I say that because the buildings are placed about 1/3 of the way up the page, so you can see here. And you don't have to put the buildings at 1/3 of the way. In fact, I've got mine a little bit further down. But you've started the buildings is here, so the base of the buildings is here. And then the top of the buildings is around here. So it's about maybe about 2/3 of the way up, okay, roughly. But again, it does not have to be perfect. All you got to do is just make sure you've got a little indication of the details in here. And, you know, I'm just even going to put in some of the rooftop of this one while I'm at it here like that. But basically, you know, you've got a bit of this section here that goes up. This is a part of the wall of that building, and it's actually looking a bit closer than I want it to look, so I will end up pushing that back a little, perhaps to like there. We'll see how we go. And I'm going to simplify this one down as well. Let's also bring this one up around about here. Okay, there, just joins onto this side of that building like that. Okay, so I hope you guys can see that all right. I can see okay from my end. Paul Bruce is in the YouTube comments saying, perspective has always been a challenge. What are your tips for nailing perspective in these kinds of paintings? Okay, so Paul, one of the things with these, especially with the if I talk about this scene in particular, is if you want to imply a flat sort of ground, a flat perspective, you have to line up the heads of the figures so that they appear on the same height on the horizon lines. So if you look at the reference photo, you'll notice all the heads of the figures, even the guy on the bike, which is kind of like crouched over a little bit on the bike, they're roughly along the same point there on the horizon line. If you draw like a line, a dot or whatever where all the heads are, they roughly line up, and that will indicate when you're doing perspective, when you're doing a sort of a flat perspective with flat land, it's just going to make sure that it appears flat. Now, if you've got the heads slowly going up, so if you've got maybe a person's head here and then you've got the heads going up, it's going to make it look like you're going up a hill. And same thing goes if the heads appear maybe higher up in the front of the perspective, in the front of the scene here. So we've got maybe a figure here that's quite large, and then the heads get smaller and smaller. It makes it look like they're going down some sort of slope. So that's in terms of like the general perspective of implying the flatness or slopes of the land. That's important. Now, another thing to keep in mind is when you're drawing things as well, when you look at things that are in the background, they're smaller. So that figure here underneath that arch, really small. And, we've got these two figures here, a little bit larger, right? Because they're closer to the front of the scene. So you want to imply that. You want to draw things that are closer to us, larger, and things that are further away, smaller, because that's just how they appear, the principles of perspective. There's these little lines here on the ground, as you can see here as well. These always are really good to help indicate direction, these sort of funny little directional lines, okay? What I tend to do as well is, you pick a point, a kind of vanishing point here, maybe just a little dot where everything just disappears. There's not really one here because you can't see the horizon line, but we can just imagine, say, that section just underneath the buildings there. That's where everything sort of becomes really, really small. And so you're just going to draw all these lines emanating from that point, okay? And that's going to help you to get this sort of feeling of perspective. And you can also start getting in like bricks and things here as well. So it's kind of what I was saying before. When you've got bricks that are larger at the front, you might want to draw like a real large brick here, and then as you get further back into the distance, the bricks get smaller and smaller. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Also, as you move into the distance, you'll find that objects tend to disappear and get softer. So the detail generally decreases a little bit as you move into the distance, and that's there's another kind of perspective that's called aerial perspective or atmospheric perspective. Even starts to change color at times, where you notice when you're looking into distant mountains and things like that, they actually take on a more bluish kind of hue. So those are a few tips, Paul. I hope they make sense. I kind of just pulled them off the top of my head. Margaret McFadden says, "Hi Darren, great day here in Melbourne, though windy." Yeah, I can hear it off my off the balcony at the moment. So I'm in a one bedroom apartment. So I've got a few plants out there, and sometimes they get blown off at night time. So I tend to keep them a little further down on that little rack outside these days. But thanks for joining, Margaret. I'm just gonna have a look at the other chats. If there's any other chats, I think we are all good. I'm just trying to get everything to show up. All right. Okay. No worries, Bruce, and sorry, no worries, Paul. And yeah, if you need some more, if you have any more specific questions while we're drawing and stuff like that, yeah, just feel free to reach out. Okay, so one of the things we're going to do here, okay, is kind of try to simplify these buildings, right? So there's 2 floors, there's 2 stories. So let's simplify that down. There's 2. So it's here we've got this. It's like this beautiful arch, couple of columns here, and then there's like an arch running through the center. And I'm just trying to figure out where they kind of finish off. And they're not like a third. They're more like, they're almost halfway through the page. You'll notice kind of left of halfway through. So if I picture that midpoint, I'd say around about here, the arch, just these are pillars, finish off around there. So I'm going to just try to get them in like that. There's these umbrellas which take on this triangular like shape like this. Okay, just a triangular like structure there. There's actually a few in there. I mean, there's some behind as well. You can put one in there, behind there. And then the arch, which kind of comes around like about halfway through, like that. Give that one a bit more room. There we go. So about halfway through there. And there's a little bit of darkness behind that arch. runs across here. This is a really crucial part of the scene, actually, just this arch here, and because that's where our light source is coming from. It's a nocturne, a nighttime sort of scene, so there's not really going to be any light. Or there is a little bit of light coming from this. I don't know. It looks like it may have just hit evening. There might still be some residual light on the horizon. But the buildings are still actually darker. If you look at them, they're slightly darker than the sky. So the sky's going to be fairly dark, and so is the ground. But the building's also going to be probably the darkest scene, the darkest shape in this scene. And the figures, they're going to be pretty dark. There's this kind of tree here or something like that that we're going to need to get in as well. I tend to spend a bit of time actually before I even get started on the painting. I tend to actually just think about how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna pull this one off? And I try to think in terms of steps, like what do I want to, what do I want to imply here? And I know I want to get in a lot of this beautiful light coming through here. And so I think, having that awareness that, hey, we've got to keep this bit pretty light helps in my sort of planning out all the stages later on. So I'm just putting in some little details of the arch, the top of the arch there. Okay, there's even some details there. I'm not going to really overdo it. Okay, but we know it's kind of dark there. We've got a couple of pillars that run down like this here. Okay, a couple of pillars. There's something on top of the pillars there. There's here as well. A lot of this stuff we're going to get in with the paintbrush afterwards, but it does certainly help out if you get in a little indication of it before. Okay, I don't want to make this super detailed as well. It's just a looser sort of style painting, but it has to have enough detail in there. Okay, what have I done here? Done something funny here. This pillar needs to be, it's actually here. That's what I mean. Kind of these when you go on with the paintbrush, you kind of have those moments where you're like, what did I draw here? Where's the boundary of this and that? It should be pretty clear with your drawing when you start going in there. What bits to focus on, what bits are part of this side of the building, what bits are part of the other side, that kind of thing. Okay, I'm going to zoom into the reference and have a look what is going on here with some of these top parts of the buildings. Here, there's like a kind of a nice little, I don't know what it is. It's just in the structure of the building. It's quite beautiful, like that. And I'm just going to draw that sort of top bit like that. But there's even another bit here that kind of mimics the other side there. Okay, something like that. It's all going to be done in basically one color anyway, so I'm not going to fuss around too much. There's a figure on top of this arch. I think I'm not sure who this figure is meant to represent, but there is a figure up there. So it's just a statue. I'm just going to draw that in like that. There's a couple of these little ornamental bits and pieces up there as well. So just marking out the approximate boundaries and locations like this. Okay, what do we have in here? Maybe a little bit of something in here. There's some type of, I don't know what that is. There's something in there. Okay, but we do know behind there is a lot of darkness, but this is all just light. And here we go. I can put in a little figure here. Okay, you can see just kind of walking in there. It's sort of like a smaller figure. What I really like about this scene as well is that these windows, there's all these lovely windows everywhere. And I think, it's a shame that the lights are off in so many of them. And I think I'm going to actually I'm going to turn the lights on in some of them. So we'll get, I'm going to change that up and get some lighter colors running through for those windows. Even over here, we've got like a balcony or something like that there. Mainly just mark out the locations of the windows. That's the most important thing. You know, in fact, here I might put in another one, a third window here, like this. That. Okay. There's something over here. It looks like kind of like a section of like a little door or something in here. Hey Kate, how you doing? Good to see you. Uh, thank you for joining. This started a little bit earlier today with the drawing, so I know a few of you may be starting to kind of trickle in. I do like to, I've tried to start these ones a little bit earlier where I can, just so that I can get some food in me um, a bit earlier. I used to do these up until even, geez, I used to do these up until nearly 10 o'clock at one stage, but I couldn't keep that up, fortunately. Just too much. Yeah, it was just a bit too much. So here we go. We've got a couple of, it's like a shop front or something like that here. I don't know. It looks like a shop front, but I can, we may be able to imply something down here. And, you know, just because you know, in the scene there's no, yeah, just because there's no, what you call it, shades and things like that under there doesn't mean that you can't add them in. So I always like to change things up a little bit where I can. For example, here. Look, we can try something like this. This looks like I can just put in an example of like a shade here. Okay, something like that. And then underneath, we can put in like a little door or something here. There. A little area here. Maybe there's someone a shop there serving people food. You know, you don't have to. You don't have to get things exactly as the reference photo. You can always change things up. I like to do that. Kind of experiment around a little bit. You know, can even put a car here. I wouldn't know what a car would be even doing here, but I thought perhaps why not put a car here for this? Maybe they can come through or something like that and just drop off some supplies or I don't know. But it doesn't matter exactly what that is. It's just a kind of it's just an object. It's just an object there. You know, here's another triangle. Triangle could be like part of an umbrella area. There could be people sitting here at a table or something like that. You know, people sitting here at the table. A couple of tables there. I don't know. Um, so hopefully I kind of remember to get this in. But that just goes to show you can do a bit of playing around and changing things up to the point where it kind of, you know, it still resembles a reference, but it adds more interest. Righto, so it's the person here on a bike. How am I going to do this? The head here, maybe the arms forwards like this. I'm not the best at drawing people on bikes. I don't do it very often. That's probably why. We're just going to get in a couple of little circles like that. Looks like he or she's kind of holding onto the handlebars here, kind of coming through the scene. Let me just zoom into this reference photo. Sometimes you're just guessing too much. And I feel like that's what I'm doing here. I'm just guessing too much. And I need a better look at a closer look at the reference. Here, that bit of the basket or something there. It's very hard to see actually what is going on in here. She's carrying a few different bits and pieces in here. Looks like she's gone on a little picked up some supplies from the shops or just going for a bit of a nighttime ride on a bike. Actually, one of her legs is down here. Let me just get that in there. And the back wheel kind of just nips the back of her leg like that. Okay, so that I think that looks a little bit better. A little bit better than what I had in before. Um, a little bit better. So we'll see how we go. We will see how we go. Um, that. And I'm going to start putting in a few more little details. Now, again, a lot of this stuff we can get in with the watercolors afterwards. But I do feel like this pillar, whatever it is, these pillars here, that they're so crucial. Just for me to get in some bits of darker bits in here so that I can, yeah, just basically have a better indication of what's going on in there when I do the when I add the paint in. So you can see I'm just actually getting that in a bit more detailed than usual. Okay, so I think that looks okay. Actually, the top of the buildings here, you notice, look, there's a little kind of rooftop section here. There we go. Just drop that in there, something like that. There. Someone on the bike. We've got a figure here. We've got a figure here. It's hard to see that figure. I've got a car here. What a car's doing here, I don't know. But I just thought, let's put another one in. Maybe they're kind of just dropping off some supplies or something. It looks like a car, but it may even be, could even be something else, like a box or something like that. I just want to create a bit of interest in overlapping shapes in here. Even this triangular bit of thingammo here, that's like kind of a bit of this indication of a potential cafe there. Again, to make this look a bit more interesting. Okay. Here's a figure walking into the scene. See there. Legs not the best. Okay, that's a bit better. A little bit better. Legs. Maybe there's a guy just holding onto a backpack or something. Arms. See his arms kind of flaying out quite a lot. What's he doing? Okay. There's a figure. We've got like a lamppost here. But before I get the lamppost in, I'm just gonna detail some of these buildings more. Okay, this larger building here as well. Bring that across like this. We've got a few windows here, and I'm going to split this building around halfway like here as well. It does look a bit different. I've drawn this part of the building a little bit wider than it actually is, but doesn't matter. It just means I got to add in another window somewhere along the way. Okay. There's little signs here. Can you see just little tabletops or something there? There's another umbrella here, like that. Okay, let me just get these indications of these windows in. So there's a window, and there's a shutter here on that side. You can kind of put that one in. This looks like a door actually on a balcony or something like that here. Like this. And that kind of has a darkened off area in here. So I'm going to just darken this. Well, I'm not going to darken it now, but like afterwards I'll probably darken this area inside a bit more. Looks to be like a balcony area as well, so let's get in a few little marks in there to remind me for that when it comes. There's a little door here, entrance of this restaurant or what have you. like that. This is kind of important as well because there's going to be some light coming from that section. These windows is just going to be light coming in from a bunch of them. Doors, windows, whatever you call them. And it's really important to preserve that light once we get to it. So let me just put in this other window here. That's like another one. Another, what you call it? These little shutters on the side like that. Here's where things start getting a bit sketchy because we have less details. We can have someone like walking in here. The best figure, but does the job. Bits and pieces here in the background, kind of tables and all that kind of thing. You can even zoom into the reference just to have a closer look at what's going on in there. Okay, that's like a kind of heater or something like that. There's a person in here as well. You know, a lot of this stuff we could indicate later on. But then we've got this tree that just kind of cuts over the top of everything, just coming in from the side of the scene, rudely interrupting, but not. I quite like it actually. Well, it means I don't have to draw that part of the building, and also it means that we've got some overlapping shapes. What is going on here in the corner? I can't see what that is. It looks like a window here. Some like grills on it. Something like that. But we've got a couple of figures. Someone that looks a little hunched over here. Head tilted towards the right. Yeah. And just kind of pacing through the scene like that. Foot facing that way, the other leg kind of like going towards the back like that. There we go. I think he's carrying some kind of handbag or whatever here. Arm here, they kind of looks like they're kind of holding up hands or something. So another head of this figure coming in like this. Like these two figures actually, they help to lead you into the scene. Just draw the hand and the arm of the guy's shirt there. Actually, this fella is a lot taller. His head's about here. Maybe because he's wearing something, I can't tell. Wearing a hat or something. Doesn't matter. I'm just gonna increase the size of that head a bit more, make it end around there, so it's just a bit taller. And then we can get the leg there again. That this leg actually comes back, and he's got this leg here that's just down. Actually, here, something like that. Okay, it's not these are not the best figures I've drawn, I'll tell you that, but I can redo the legs perhaps on this one. Let me just have a look. There's just too much wonkiness going on in here. Just a bit more of a sharpness to it and more intention to what I'm doing, I think. There, right. That looks all right. What else can I do in here to try to balance things out? No, there's a light here. Might be good to put a light in here. Just in this section, sort of starts with such the lamp there. Just to remind myself to later that there is some kind of lamp there. We can use some gouache as well. On top of the buildings, you will notice there are some little chimneys and that sort of thing there as well. Let's get this kind of top section of this building in a bit, just increase the height of it slightly. Okay, we're getting there, We're almost done with the sketch. There's something I'm just feeling we're missing on this side. Maybe I'm being pedantic. I'll put in another one here. Another figure here, perhaps. It's not to say that we can't put more in afterwards as well. I've forgotten to put in some of these other doors as well. There's one there. There's potentially like one under here as well. Just going behind this figure. Look at that. Just being cut off by the trees and that kind of thing in here. Okay, good. So I think that's about that's all I kind of need for what I want in this scene. We're gonna get started with the painting now. Started with the good old painting. And Neil says, "Hey Darren, I wasn't sure if this was happening as I couldn't find it on Facebook. I saw you had a 9 a.m. children's watercolor workshop." I don't think I have. I don't have a children's workshop running. I've never ran one of those before. So yeah, it might have been another person that's running it. Kate says, "Sorry, late." That's all good. I hope you've managed to catch up okay. And Paul says there's a cute dog in the scene too. There is. And you know what? There's two of them. They're playing. If you zoom into the reference photo, there's like a white dog and then like another kind of brownish looking one over there. You know, we could just try to indicate something here. I find with dogs, the main things just the ears and the tail make a really big difference. The ears and the tail, you can get those in. That kind of looks a bit like a dog there. I mean, it's not the most obvious sort of dog, but certainly something. Okay, I don't know if I'll get that one in later, but we'll see. Okay. Yeah, Neil says, okay, it must have been someone else running that workshop. Oops, no, that's okay. But a children's workshop might be a good idea for sometime in the future. I know some of my viewers they bring their kids along and do these at the same time. So I think this is kids friendly as well, except that some of the subjects that we cover are pretty complex. So I think for some kids they might find it a bit tricky. But hey, it's always good to challenge yourself. Ciara, how you doing, Ciara? Good to see you again from last week. I remember you here. Are you using pen or still pencil? I'm just using pencil for this one, Ciara. So if you want to use pen, that's okay. You can also just go over the top with pen. I've done a lot of like pen and wash stuff. And yeah, you just go over it. You can do the pencil first, pen, or you can just go straight with the pen. Kate's asking what time did you start. I started just before 6, Kate. It was about 5:50, I think. 5:50. I got started. Usually, I try to kick off a little bit earlier if I can. But I did spend most of that time just talking about some previous paintings I've done. Marnaz, how you going, Marnaz? Art Sydney, good to see you again. Remember you from last week. Thank you for coming back. And says, "Hi Darren, I'm still catching up with the sketch." Okay, so that's good that I'm kind of talking for a bit then. I'm going to show you guys a technique, how we can paint most of this wet into wet. We're going to get in some of the light reflected off the building. So a lot of if you look at the reference picture, it's quite subtle, but we've got light under here, light on the top of this building, light on the kind of like warmer, softer light on the buildings. But then the tops of the buildings are darker and there's less light on them. So It's going to be an interesting one. I'd say what I'll do is say what I do is basically just get in a lot of the warm colors first, and then I'm going to drop in some cooler colors in to sort of get in some of the shadows to contrast with the warmer colors. And now this it's also going to be interesting because I'm thinking the sky does need to be fairly dark, but not too dark. So it has to be darker than what it is normally in the daytime. But the buildings, remember, the buildings have to be darker than the sky. If we look at the buildings, tonally speaking, that they're darker. And because usually with daytime scenes, it's easier to figure out these tones. You can just have lighter, pretty light for the sky. The rest of it can just be darker, and the tone of it doesn't matter all too much as long as it's dark in the sky. This one here, we still want to imply that it's nighttime, so almost the color of the sky there, that tone in the sky it's almost as dark here on the pavement as in the sky. So I want to mimic a bit of that, potentially even dark. Actually, it's potentially darker in the pavement here. So this is what's going through my head a lot of the time before I even am putting the brush onto the paper. I'm just thinking how I'm going to do this, because you only get one chance to do a lot of this wet stuff in watercolors, and you want to make sure you do it right. So I'm going to go in. I think I'm going to just go in and do what I usually do, and I'm going to start with the buildings. I'm going to start with the buildings first, and then what I'll do is afterwards I'll do the sky. So we'll see how we go. Keeping in mind, I want to make the buildings, especially the top of the buildings, darker than the sky, but the sky's still got to be dark. Righto. And Sierra says, yeah, thanks. Today's my second workshop with you, and I brought along my aunt. Oh, that's nice. Bina, your Aunt Bina. Nice to see you both joining on. Bit of motivation, especially when you're playing along with someone else. Whether you're in a group or you've got someone next to you, it's really good motivation. I don't know what it is. It's kind of like going to the gym, and if you've got a good training partner or something like that, I don't know, you just feel more motivated, and it just becomes fun. Nice to meet you, Bina. I hope I got your name. I hope I pronounced your name correctly as well. But appreciate you both being here. What time is it for you guys? I can see. I'm not sure where exactly you're from, but I hope it's a reasonable time for you guys. 6 p.m. here for me in Melbourne. I'm going to check the comments. Oh, Keith's here. So Keith Richardson says, thanks, Darren. I'll be watching later on. 11:16 p.m. here. Love it. So Keith's actually provided this reference photo for us on his recent trip to Italy. He actually mentioned the name of this location, but I've now forgotten it. I think it's. I'm not even trying to. I'll put it up later. I'll put it up a bit later. But thank you, Keith, and I hope I can pull this one off. I think I can. Like if I'm playing out in my head, and we'll see how we go. Always good to try something different. And Moira is here as well. How you going, Moira? Thank you for coming along. And 3:30 p.m. In Philippines. Cool. So it's a good sort of time for you all. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get started with the actual drawing now, with the painting. Geez. And I'll keep an eye on the chats as well. But like I said, one of the first things we want to do is make sure we've got a nice sort of indication of the light. And I always try to start with the light first, especially when we're talking about yellows. And if we're starting to use blues as well, there's always a chance that you can mix up some, you can basically mix up a bit of green that you don't want. I do have a bit of this other color. Where is it? This other color here, Australian red gold. I'm actually going to use a little bit of it. There's a quinacridone base in it. I think it might be just good to try. Oh, separated out in the tube. It's not good. I'll just mix up a little bit here. Sometimes that happens when the paint's in the tube for too long. It just separates out. Okay, so I've got a bit of this. It's kind of this color called Australian red gold, which really it's like a quinacridone sort of color. I'll try a bit there. How does that look? It's all right. I've got a mop brush. Just put in a bit here, and then some of this yellow. This is a bit of the a bit of Hansa yellow. Okay, and I'm gonna just go around some of the bits and pieces here. I've also on this side of the palette, I'm picking up a little bit of buff titanium, mixing that with some yellow so I can get in maybe some of these indications of the umbrellas. Start off just a little bit of more of a creamy color for the umbrellas. I don't know how long that will last. There's some kind of like shade here that we decided to add in before. But look, all I'm doing, if you look closely, it's just getting in some light. Just all this warmth in here. And it's going to go over most of the building. In fact, the windows as well, that's where I want to get in some of this light in the windows to make it look like we have, the lights are on. There's something going on in there. Okay, so a bit of that. Go up to the top. This building here, let's put in a bit more of this buff titanium to get in more of this sandy sort of color running through. I don't want to leave all too much white on the paper as well. Normally, I do like to use some bits of white in here, but today I think I'll try to get in most of it without the white. Little bits here and there, because it's a nighttime scene. Okay, and we're putting in, like I said, these kind of background colors, the background lighter sort of colors on here, using a larger sort of mop brush, or if you don't have a mop brush, use any kind of brush that will help you to that just picks up enough water. Essentially, that's the main thing. It's that can hold a lot of water, but still has a tip that allows you to what you call it. I'm struggling to multitask at the moment, but yeah, it allows you to get in small details, cut around figures and things in here. Okay, there we go. So we've got some of this color in here, looking good. Bit more, and perhaps a bit of orange or something. Just change it up, bit of orange here on that side. Okay, you can go faster and paint a bit more that in here. I love this quinacridone gold color, so I'm going to make use of a bit more of this, cut around some of these bits and pieces, that umbrella there, a bit of the umbrella color there. Look at this window here. It's more this quinacridone color. I think I do. Squeeze out a bit more of this color. I do also have a little spray bottle, and the spray bottle is great for keeping bits of the paper wet so that it doesn't form a hard edge. So as you can see, I'm just spraying a bit of water on there to give myself a bit of time while I check through the comments. Keith is saying it's I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Lecce, Italy. Don't sound so confident there. Lecce. And I was immediately drawn to this photo when you uploaded it. Keith. I don't know, just the lights and the sky, um, this beautiful color of the sky contrasting with the yellows, and then this sort of peaceful scene here, and the beautiful um, sandstone sort of colored buildings, like amazing. Must have been a fantastic trip for you, Keith. Right, I'm gonna get back to it. Some more of this gold color in here. I've got some brown as well, a bit of burnt sienna. Bit of burnt sienna won't hurt, just especially as we go over to this left-hand side here where it's quite dark, or it's darker anyway compared to the other stuff in here. Bit of that, bit of yellow ochre. Further down in here, a bit of yellow ochre. Just cut around that figure again. We do have, of course, this this tree, that kind of shape here as well. So I want to make sure I'm going to indicate some of that tree. So let's put in some green. I've got some. I'm actually use another brush to do this. It's a larger number 10 round brush. So I don't want to mix any other greens in just yet. So this is some undersea green. Just drop in a bit of this in here first. And I'm going to let it just spread around a bit, but apart from that, I'm not going to do all that much. Just a little darkness in here and soft wet and wet work. So you can see it's just really bit of squiggly stuff going in here that will melt in and hopefully look a bit like a tree once we are done. There's softer edges at the moment. Okay, back to my other brush. Here comes the part where I was kind of thinking, what do I do? So I want to carry on this light. Okay, and what I'll do is actually just, we know we've got a bit here. You can see just some kind of like lamp here that's casting a bit of light here on the ground, like this. And then not only there, there's even some light here and here. Almost runs directly down. Some spots. So I'm going to go along with this sort of style where the light of the buildings kind of like reflect down a bit, like this. Okay, create a bit of this color traveling down the page around the figures. Okay. That. Bit of splattering as well. I just want to put in a bit of water maybe running through here to create some little texture and feeling of just a bit of feeling of texture, I suppose, on the buildings. Okay. And we're going to do this bit now. Let's just do it. What I might do actually is start adding a bit of color into the buildings up the top here. I'm going to dull this down a bit, guys. I don't want too much strong sort of colors going on at the moment. So I'm taking a bit of purple and I'm mixing it with some raw umber. And this is just dull that purple down a little bit. Drop in a bit of that here. Now the paper is still wet, which makes it perfect to play around with some of this stuff. Okay. The bottom here is actually pretty easy to do. Now, what you want to try to accomplish here is to keep some of this lovely sort of orangey yellow sort of color. I'm going to keep some of that and still get in a bit of darkness in the ground, which is really just it's kind of like a purplish ultramarine color. It's more like a purplish blue kind of color. It's hard to see, but I'll try something like this. I don't want it to be too vibrant. That's the thing. I'm just wary of this. So I can put in a bit of brown in there to just perhaps dull it down a bit. Bit of neutral tint. Okay, there we go. And I'm just, see how I'm feathering it through like that? And that's allowing me to retain some of that, light running through the background. But a lot of this is, yeah, it's just ultramarine with a bit of neutral tint. This, careful not to go too dark. Can be tempting times. Leave the legs, bit of the legs in here. Like that. Okay. Bit of softness at the base there, like that. Good. Get a bit of darkness, perhaps running across some parts in the background like that. I think this would be good as well. Just having some bits of darkness maybe running through the back as well. But remember, we just want to retain a lot of this light on here, so just be careful. I want to soften some of this up, blend and merge it with the midground a bit better, especially here. This is too, that needs to be softened. That needs to be softened there. You want to create a transition where it moves. Okay, continuing on, bit of ultramarine mixed with some more of this burnt umber. I'm going to put some of this into the top of the building here. Bit of that. Perhaps some more blue, tiny bit more blue in here. Got a number 6 round brush as well. Kind of a cooler sort of grey color, I suppose, is what I'm trying to get in here. Okay, up the top of that building like this. Bit there. And what I'm trying to do is kind of get the edge of the building. It's kind of like the boundary of that building to where it touches the sky. And get some of it to move down as well into the buildings. And remember, we're not trying to detail really anything here. It's just that basic wet and wet wash that I want to get in, okay? And some of this darkness in the buildings, I'm thinking that will help create a little bit more interest, some darker sort of shadows. But again, we're keeping the light on the buildings as well. So although I'm going darker, see I'm cutting around the windows a little bit there. You can also lift up later if it's too much. It's hard to lift with this brush. Synthetics are much better lifting paint. Little towel, little bit of paper towel. You can also do this sort of thing. Lift off a bit of paint like that. It's probably a bit early for that, but doesn't matter. Here as well, look, we've got the top of this building, which just comes up like that. There, sticks out of the sky. there, there. Good. You can even start putting in a little bit of detailing for the buildings, like indications of where the shadows and things fall, like here, for example. A bit of softness there. This is just some neutral tint that I'm using, nothing special. You notice there's little lines on parts of the buildings here, these little bits of detail that you just touch and go, really, just touch and go to indicate, inside these pillars there's a bit of darkness around the edges, and you can do this sort of thing to indicate it. Wet into wet, of course. And later we can add some more, we can add a little bit more contrast in there, a bit more sharpness is what I mean, as well. So continuing on, some more darkness on the buildings, like this, and leaving out a bit of light for some of these pillars as well. And down here, I'm going to leave out some more light to indicate these bottom parts of the buildings and the cafes and that sort of thing. But you can see that there is also darkness in here that, if you have the chance, drop in a bit of paint in there very, very slightly. I dry off the brush, pick up a bit of paint, dry off the brush, and I just pop that in there real quickly like that. You don't want to spend too much time in there trying to flesh out all these details. We can do more of that later. We want to look at the whole picture at the moment, and the main thing to get in is this softness, some of the soft shadows on the buildings. This is about the only time that you can actually do this. The next round is going to be sharp details on there. Okay. Thought I would darken off some of these buildings a little bit more as well. Just near the edge of them as well, around the edges like this. Oh, there's actually little chimneys. Tiny little bits and pieces like chimney tops and things. If you have a rigger brush that you can put in. This actually is darker, this building here. It's a fair bit darker. Bit of this detailing off the top of the buildings, like this. Okay. All right, I think that's looking okay for the time being. I'm gonna just do a bit of drop in a bit of water, tap in a bit of this water to, I don't know, make things a bit more interesting, I suppose. You don't have to do this. This is just a way to create some textures in here. I accidentally got a lot into the sky, but I'm hoping that will disappear once we go in with some of the darker blue in the sky. Thought I'd just put in a light indication of the shadow and darkness behind there as well. Okay, but I'll have to redo that later. We'll have to redo that later. Okay. Time to do the sky. I'm going to use this mop brush. And also, I'm thinking such a vibrant sort of sky, isn't it? I don't know if I've actually got a vibrant enough color to put in there. I've got it's ultramarine. I think that's probably the closest that I can get to. So I'd prefer using some cobalt actually if I had some cobalt blue, but doesn't matter. Bit of this stuff. And remember that we still want it to be fairly, we don't want it to be as dark as the buildings. So I'm just doing a little cutting around this. Let's have a look. I can leave some white near the tops of the buildings, if you see that, just to cut or indicate like the edge of that building there. Something like this. Yeah. That. This is a crucial part, this section here of the arch, the top of the arch, where we need to imply some more details. I'm going to mix in a bit of darker paint here. And just kind of cut around that better. Head of that figure. Then this kind of ornamental thing there. We're getting there. Still only the first wash. Still only the first wash, and it doesn't look all like too much at the moment, but I am persevering, and it's so important to continue on at these moments where you think, doesn't really look like what I'm trying to paint, but you got to remember that the scene only starts to take form once everything's, all the pieces are in place, all the lights, all the darks. So continue on. Don't give up. I'd often give up at this stage when I first started, thinking that I'd stuffed it. But don't call it until the end. All right, that's the trickiest bit done. So I can kind of relax now and start putting in the rest of the sky. Okay, this is just some ultramarine blue. I would have preferred some cobalt blue actually, but I don't have any on my palette, so I'm just making do with what I've got right now. Okay, there we go. Some more ultramarine. Let's bring this up. Some nice granulating blue. It is more of a purplish kind of blue though, which it's a warm blue. Okay, so that's that for the sky. Great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this dry off, and we will come back to it once it's dry. And what we will do is then start adding in the final bits and pieces, the final dark bits of the buildings, try to merge things together. And what I'm trying to do here especially is trying to find a bit of connection between the sky and the buildings, but I still want there to be a bit of definition there as well. Okay. And another thing I like to do as well is, you know, just before it is dried, I mean, it's almost dried anyway, we can go into some of the windows, lift out a bit of color there, something like this, to get an indication of this, like a lamp. I think I had a lamp there that just disappeared. Get rid of a bit of paint there. I think would it be nice to lift off a bit of paint here, but oh yeah, we can still get off a little bit of, just lighten that area a bit with a paper towel. This is a little hack. I don't know who really does this, but it's just, I put a bit of bit of water on the towel and then lift. I want to lighten up an area a little bit more. But we can lift off some of the details of these windows. Some of it we can do, some of it not really. I have a filbert brush, which is this brush here. It's kind of got it looks a bit like a flat brush, but it's not. And it allows you to kind of scrub, as you can see, to scrub and get rid of paint, remove paint from areas, this, and then kind of lift off. And I found this a godsend, especially with portraiture, to remove some bits of sharper edges, you know, removing some sharper edges. You know, you can even do it up the top there and lift off a bit on the tops of the buildings, to create, you know, if you notice it's just a bit sharp there or something, you want to soften off a bit of that edge, you can do that. Okay, because in this step we are not really creating many sharp edges at all. A lot of it's just softness in here. Okay, I'm just trying to get in, get out a bit of that color. Okay, so I will continue on. Let's have a look what else we can potentially do here. I might actually add in a bit of color for the figures. We may not even need the hairdryer. Actually, you may not need the hairdryer. Pamela's saying late, but have to watch tomorrow. Having troubles with the internet. Okay, no problem, Pamela. Catch it. You can watch it afterwards. Matt's saying, "Hey Darren, you seem to use pencil today for sketching, but seem to use pens too mostly. What do you think the preference should be? Although we know the pencil lines can be erased." It's up to personal, like a personal preference, Matt. So, I like to use. I prefer to use pencil actually, because, especially with watercolor painting these days, I just like to have a bit of a softer edge on areas. And in terms of if you're using, if you're using pen to draw in, it just has more of a sharper edge. You can see more of the details. It's just a different style. I wouldn't say one's better than the other. Even with watercolors, you can get very sharp edges if you want to, and it looks almost like you can use it almost like inks, where you're picking up a very dark paint like neutral tint, outlining the windows a bit more, stuff like that. So yeah, it's more of a personal choice. I think pens, when you get in though, it forces you to concentrate more on your drawing, because you only get one go with it. Whereas with pencils, you can erase and change things around. Mine as Art Sydney asked, "Do you know the name of this place in Italy?" Sorry, you might have mentioned, but I missed. Yeah, Keith. Keith said it's Lecce, Italy, which is spelled Lecce. So I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that's where it is. And Keith is saying the lifting part is amazing. It's changing and bringing in such detail. Yeah, it's you see, like, when I drop in water to areas, or I'm lifting, or any of that kind of thing there, you find like it just creates textures and creates a little bit of interest where textures basically, because it can be tricky and look a bit artificial when you're going in, when you're using watercolors and you're trying to get in textures at times. It's just when you add too many layers of watercolors, you find that it just gets really muddy and doesn't look so good. So in a single wash like this, that's why I employ a few different techniques, these lifting techniques and everything like that, while the whole page is wet, so that it allows me to get in a bit more detail, a bit more texture, without sacrificing on the wash, that the beautiful vibrancy of all these colors. These figures here on the side, they're really just quite dark, and I'm gonna just go in with some neutral tint here, okay, and a bit of the head like that. Put in a bit of the body, okay. This part is mostly dried, so you don't have to worry all too much about what is going to happen. It's not going to mix in or anything like that, but just a little bit of color there, okay. And there's another figure here, kind of the head. I think we put the head around there, didn't we? There, like that. And then the legs were kind of like this. Okay. Can go in there and reshape it a bit later. Join them up a bit more, just so that the hands, I think they're holding hands, connected a bit more like this. They look a bit more part of a couple kind of thing. This figure here, dark as well, pretty dark, tone wise. It's more of just a silhouette, but quite a strong silhouette. So here's I think there's a hand coming out there. There's another one that side. You notice it as well. You tend to lose details with the watercolors, whereas when you're this is just a comment for you, Matt, that you tend to lose a bit of the details when you're going with pencil, but when you're drawing with pen, you find that when you, even after you go in with the watercolors, you retain a lot of the detail from the pen. It's very hard to just to get rid of that pen once you've put it in, which is good and bad. So it depends whether you want that, whether you're happy with it or not. Here's that dog that I'd kind of put in, just a bit of neutral tint. See, just a couple of ears. There's the body there, connected up with the ears, body, a bit of a tail or something there. Like that. Okay. So we'll look at what else is happening. Oh, I thought the stream had stuffed up for a moment. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Let me know if it's going. Camera just made a funny noise. I thought it'd shut off. I think it's okay. Give me a heart attack. I know. I'm going to continue on. So, had a dog there, just a bit of this occasion of a dog. Just a small brush. Really just depends on how much you want to get in here. A couple of ears, bit of the body, and a bit of the tail like that, some legs there, and you've got a dog. Got a couple of dogs here. I mean, it's not exact by all means, but it's a dog. A couple of dogs. I might get some shadows running in here as well. I'm just thinking how I'm going to do it, or if I would do it, basically. Normally, I try to get some shadows in. Okay, thank you, Manez. A bit of this head of this figure here. Head of that figure. Let me just grab the reference. And a bit of the body, like that. The arms, an arm there, arm coming out there, like that. Leg there. And then we can, of course, draw in the wheel of the bike. These always look better. The less you touch them, the better they end up looking. I don't know why, but the more you try to draw in that the actual bike, sometimes the funnier it looks. Okay, that's like a kind of the little section of that bike there. I'll leave it as that. I don't want to overdo it. A soft shadow. I'm just mixing up a soft shadow of the colors, the darker colors I've left here, and put it in here. Just join up the legs a bit, and running towards the right. A bit of this indication of a shadow for that bike as well. Probably have to re-indicate that bike. Actually, it's two. The wheel, of course. I should probably join that up like that more. As I said, I'm not the best with bikes. I don't draw them all too often. Okay, but we've got a figure here standing. We've got a person, a bike. We've got some shadows here on the ground. Some soft shadows, by the way, not too strong at all. The shadows are just going to help to ground the figures a bit better. Connect them to the ground like that. This figure here as well, maybe some shadow running towards that right hand side, join up a bit more like this, because I'm just imagining the light source coming from the left hand side of these buildings. I mean, it's hard because, to be honest, we've got light sources coming in all different directions. We've got lights here, lights there, so I'm just imagining a bit of that. These figures here in the background, a little color here as well for some of them. A little bit of something going on in there. Here's one, even just underneath this arch, kind of walking in the background there. There's one here as well. I think that I might have drawn one here. I have to say that. Okay. So we're getting there, and I haven't had to use the hairdryer, which is a good bonus. Now go into the buildings and just get in the final finishing sort of touches. Just bring up the stream. Sassy Cat, I'm sorry I missed the start. I'll go back and watch it later. No problem. Sassy Cat, I don't think I've heard of you before. If you've come in the previous stream, maybe you're using a different username, but thank you for coming along. Now on the camera, for some reason, it's really emphasizing the darks, and then it's not as dark as it looks. It's actually a little bit lighter than that, but yeah, I don't know why it's done that. It's just something I've got to play around with a bit more with the settings on the camera later on. Okay, so small details and bits and pieces, bits of the windows and stuff that we have to indicate as well. So I'm just going to pick up a bit of dark color. See if I can put in some darkness in this window, or just this part here. Window, maybe here. These 4 little bits and pieces. Another one here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's look for some areas of darkness. This thing over here, whatever that is, that's darker. Let's put in a bit of darkness there. These are sharper shapes. Okay, in this mix of whatever is going on in here, some sharper shapes. And these little balcony thingo, a little balcony like there, that near that window, see? The edges of this window as well. The what you call it? The frame of the window. And try to just do this once. You know, with these lines, just go in, put them in once and leave it. Because if you go over it too many times, it starts looking funny. Too overworked. Okay. That side of that window there, perhaps a bit of this. Oh, this is a car. I forgot I put a car here for some reason. Just get in something like that underneath. Bit of darkness under some of these areas as well to draw out the umbrellas. The umbrellas. I want to get rid of that whole car though, so I've just got to be careful. Something under here, just a bit of darkness under here. And this kind of shade that we've got as well. I was trying to indicate some kind of a shop or restaurant. I don't know, just something here. That's edge of the building here as well. Bit of that going on. Now, keep in mind that most of this is dried. There's some dampness in here, but most of it's dried, which is allowing me to just to do this sort of thing, to get these like feathery marks running around, and they're still sharper sort of edges, but at the same time they melt a bit into the wash. Very, very slightly, they melt into the wash. So, you know, that here is a window. It's meant to be a window anyway. There. Let's try a bit here. Could be another window. No balconies on those. There's one here actually. Just indicate a bit of that. But once. You know, you're basically just drawing. You're basically drawing with the brush. That's all you're doing. Getting the top of this roof in a bit darker. There's not enough contrast to just on the top of this, in the top of this roof in areas. So that's what I'm hoping to achieve here. Just a slight darker portion on the top. Scene. Go. The line coming across like this here. I'm just using a little mop brush, by the way, in case some of you are wondering what brush I'm using. It's just a little mop brush, nothing special, but it has a nice sort of tip to it, which allows me to get in small details like this, as you can see. Just inventing stuff in here. I don't even know what that is. Of course, we've got these pillars now, and was saying before to wait a little bit to try to get into some of the details in the pillars. A little section through the center of the pillars is kind of important because it separates them out. That's just a bit of darkness in the center. Arch as well. Yeah. Important, so I'm trying to emphasize that a bit better. Bit more darkness in this section. It's a few just little indications, line marks like that. Poles and stuff. A little bit here to indicate the top of this structure. It's funny, I'm kind of looking at it myself and it doesn't really look like a whole lot, but I'm hoping when it comes together it will make sense. And Valerie's here. Welcome, Valerie. Thank you for coming along. Good to see you. Yeah, I've not been well, not been so well, so it's good to be back into the swing of things actually. And yeah, this is a scene that Keith Richardson from our little group sent through for us to paint on his last trip to Italy. So lots of fun with this. It's really challenging, I'll tell you that, but it's good fun, great fun. Valerie's one of my patrons as well, and just having a look if there's any other comments, guys. If you have any questions, do feel free to pop them in the chats. I will get back to you. Lost the other chat for a moment. Where is it? Morning, Natalie. Good to see you. I'm doing a live at a slightly different time today because it's the only time I can really do it, about 6 p.m. And I haven't been streaming for that long actually. About actually I have it's been about an hour and a bit, which is probably normal for most. Okay. Get back to it. I'm just double checking to make sure else. But as you can see, it preserved a lot of the warm colors on the buildings, and I'm just going through and adding in a little bit of darkness to get out, flesh out some details of the buildings. So something a little bit, just bringing back some of the detail on there. Okay, let's continue on. More here, there, on this side we've got some darkness on the buildings as well. We'll notice just a bit of this sort of detailing down here. I might get just the frame of that window even like that, and of course the roof of this building I want to just indicate that a bit more, get it to stick out of that sky slightly, separate out the buildings. And remember, we do have this large tree that's running in front as well. That window, there's a window or something like a door here as well for the bottom of that restaurant there. Barely see it. maybe a bit of darkness underneath here as well. Okay. And bit of extra darkness for this tree. Just getting a few kind of marks like this on the paper. Some softer tree sort of leaves and shapes running through. But I'm leaving a bit of that previous wash in there as well. Okay, good. Bit of that. There's a window there as well. Just to be there. Right. Be time yet, but I'll just put in some directional lines. A few of these. Get the first one kind of running up here somewhere. Actually, it's like this. There. Lines on the ground that lead all the way to this kind of central point in the back. This going on as well there. Something on the ground that just helps to pull this together a bit more. Okay, getting there. Really, at this point, I'd say I'm almost done. I mean, I would prefer to have probably a little bit more detail in this actually, but I end up using the mop brush for most of this, and it's created a interesting sort of loose sort of style, probably a bit looser than my normal work even. Um, can we get in some more darks in here? That's the thing. Can we get in some really sort of dark colors, perhaps? Some spots like here darken off even more. There. There, perhaps. Around that figure a bit. And there's another figure here, perhaps just around that figure as well. I had some kind of lamppost here as well. Running through the back. Perhaps getting a bit of gouache in that section to bring out like a bit of the lamp up in that section too. You can just flesh out the details of these pillars a bit better. Anything, I just have to make sure these pillars just look like pillars. Putting some shadows in between them. That. I'm gonna sit back a little bit and double check. Sometimes a few little layers can do the trick. A few additional layers. You notice there's this kind of texture in some of the buildings, the areas of the buildings as well. To get a little bit of texture, you can turn the brush on the side and do this kind of thing. That helps to get in a bit of dry brush texture, and on top of that wet and wet kind of texture before. The filbert brush is pretty good. Like, I've been using it before to lift off some paint. That's still an option here. In some areas, like for example, even here, lift. Here, lift. In here, softening some of these edges. Here and there. To help it to blend a bit more into the sky. I'm just almost about done. Let me look to see if there's anything else. Valerie says it's the time zone thing that stopped me watching you live, Darren. It's 8:18 here. Oh, yeah, it must be a yeah. I know the ones that I do in the mornings here are pretty difficult for you. Might try to do one at a separate time. I'll touch base with you at another stage and see. And I get that from all of my UK viewers as well, that they find it tricky to tune in at this time. But sometimes it's the only time that I can get on a computer. Right. Now, I think I'm going to do one last thing, and that's to just darken the buildings very, very slightly. I do feel that there's a bit too much light on here, and there's a bit too much light, especially on that top section. If I can just darken those buildings very, very slightly, and get in a bit of that color in there, that should balance it up a little bit more. Maybe a little bit of gouache as well. Some of the figures might be a good idea. Just adjust the camera a little bit. For some reason, it's just it's making the darks look really, really dark when they shouldn't look. Yeah, they shouldn't look really as dark as this. Just increase the brightness a little bit. For some reason, I don't know what it's doing, but that looks a little bit more representational. So, really quick, I'm not going to spend too much time on this at all, but I'm just going to give this a really quick sort of spray on the top section of those buildings. Pick up a little bit of purple, drop it in to hopefully get in some darker sort of shadows, with still a bit of softness in there as well. Especially around those windows. Okay, let's take this off. Bit of that tape off. Certainly, certainly it's a pretty loose sort of scene. If I had to do this one again, I'd probably spend a bit more time on the buildings. But I think it looks certainly captures the feel that I wanted for this. I was wondering if I might have some time to do a second one. Since I've actually taped up another bit of paper, but let me just have a look. I might have another one that we can do a practice on. It's more of a daytime scene. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Yeah, it's more of a daytime scene, but I thought it would be good to give this one a try as well. Valerie says, "Don't worry about the time thing. You can't accommodate everyone." Yeah, I do try though. Yeah, if I can. Sometimes it's just too late, and I end up painting for a lot. Really, up. I used to do these sessions pretty late, and certainly makes it easier if I'm awake while I do them. I'm going to pause the audio for a moment and give this a little dry. All right. I think I might actually attempt a second one. Again, this is another reference photo that Keith provided. Seeing that I've actually finished this one off in quite a short period of time, and I have another bit of paper prepared, and it's actually looking forward. I couldn't decide whether to do this one or another one. So with that said, I'm going to just do a bit of a swap over and swap that reference picture over a little bit as well. The camera's a little bit good, all good. Get this up. There we go. So this scene here, and we're going to try to simplify this down, and I'm going to do the sketch super quick. I haven't done this scene before, but I really like the shadows. Really like the shadows on the buildings, and then the sort of the light as well. So I want to give this one a crack. Now this is going to be kind of interesting. I'm going to have to turn the page this way. Which may prove tricky actually. Just have a look. I think you may miss out on a little bit of the scene, but well, may do. Okay. Right, so what I'm going to do first is look essentially at buildings and where I want it to finish off. Now I'm going to finish off the buildings probably around about here. This is going to be more of a simple one. I've never done this one before, but I love the buildings and the light patterns on them. And let's go ahead. I'm going to put in, we've got like an umbrella here. Okay, so this is around about, I wouldn't say a third of the way, but a bit less than a third of the way up the page. Okay, so we've got maybe a slightly larger sort of foreground here. And this is like a kind of umbrella here. Let's just put that in. Simplified umbrella. Another one here. Going behind there, there's a few people here. A couple of people standing around near the umbrellas, and there's like some chairs and tables. As you can see, that there's a building. Let's have a look. How can we imply some of these chairs and things? Just a few little bits and pieces running down like that. Okay. This building coming in around about a third of the way from the right side of the page, like here. And comes out like this, like that, up into the sky. It's a larger building coming in from the left-hand side. This, that. Some kind of, looks like a chair or something here, or something on the wall. It's a pot plant here as well. Bit of detail. I may get a person just standing here too. Actually, got to make sure that person's appropriately sort of sized too, so that we don't have funny things going on with the perspective. Okay. There's some of these perspective lines maybe coming through here. Just thinking, how are we going to do this? This middle building is starts around about here. Goes up, all over the top, and finishes like that. A bit coming over across like this. It's kind of the edge of that building coming down. Yeah, bit of the side of that building in there as well. Okay, fantastic. Another umbrella or something like that here, just a smaller one in that section. Some figures in the back here too. Okay. Struggling a bit with these perspective lines. Now I want to keep them consistent as well, so that they all kind of run in that same sort of direction. It's tricky with this photo actually. We've got the base of the buildings here. So this continue on like that. And a bit of that building here. It's almost like this sort of perspective. I think what might look better is if I just increase maybe the size of some of these figures. I have a couple of them perhaps just walking into the scene further along at the back here. There. A few more here, for example. Okay. some floors to this building. How many of those? 1, 2, 3, 4. Really just marking out their approximate location at the moment. The main thing I want to get in is just to make sure the perspective looks all right, because certainly has to make more sense than it does than it did before. We've got didn't notice that. I wonder what that is. Like a little, I'm not sure what this is. It looks like a shuttle bus or something like that over in this side. It could be something in there. I'm gonna just copy this to make sure that perspective of that building is going okay, like this. Disappears off into the edge in there. This is the edge of this building, and we've got some little windows here, a couple of windows, like this. There. Balconies as well, of course. We can get in with the watercolors after. There is a kind of a rooftop here. Not a rooftop, a door here. Coming down like that, side of that building. Okay. There's a kind of a lamp or something here as well. Just thought I'd draw that in. Why not? Get in a bit of that lamp there. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've done 5. Done 5 accidentally. What I'll do is just put in another one here at the base. Something like that. Okay. Sides of the building, a bit of this here, but we'll have to simplify this down a lot. Perhaps another figure closer here as well to the scene that may be walking towards us. Another one here walking into the scene like that. You can have another figure just walking in from that left-hand side. That. Okay, so I'm going to go with this. I'm going to go with this and see how it turns out. And I reckon we should be able to. I reckon I should be able to finish this one off pretty quickly as well. But I wanted to give this a go. Tanya's at 7:30 p.m. in Australia. Yep, we're 7:45. It's getting later. And Natalie says, "Is this in Italy?" Yes, it is. It's in Italy. It's a place called. Well, it's a picture that Keith Richardson provided, and it's in. Where is it again? I keep losing the chat. Lecce. It's a Lecce, Italy. So I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that's apparently where it is, and quite a beautiful photo. Both of these. Okay. I'm gonna get straight into it. Yeah, and first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just pick up some of this yellow ochre. Pop that straight in to the buildings like that. Definitely a very muted down yellow color. Okay, I'm going to join this building on to the one in the background as well, which has a bit more vibrancy to it. So this one here, just a bit more yellowy. So join that on and down. I'm also going to cut around some of these windows a bit like this, so that I can put in some maybe some blue or something in the windows later. Okay. Using a really large mop brush as well for this. Okay. Good. And the umbrellas. Get those umbrellas in as well. It might just be easier if we just meld them all together like this. Again, leaving a bit of that door opening here for later. You can even leave some of the umbrellas white if you'd want. It's not a huge deal. Okay, just a couple of figures there running, walking towards the front of the scene. Let's get in a bit of this side of the building. And at this stage, I'm just trying to get in all the light colors. Good. Bit of light on this one as well. More vibrant, actually. Some of these areas, like up the top of this building, it's a lot more vibrant. That. Can also put in some darker color in here to get in just a bit of the shadows on these buildings. Okay, it's not 100% just yet, but just a little bit of darkness in there, and let it sort of mix around a bit on the paper. This is actually a bit of a softer shadow where the sun hits that building, and it carries down here. There. A lot of softness behind here as well. Just a bit of yellow, warmer color. Join that on like that. And on top of that, on the ground, we're just going to add a bit of this yellow mixed in with neutral tint. There. Carry this down. That. Not too dark, but it is darker than certainly a lot darker than the sky and the buildings. Okay. Just a bit of color, maybe a bit of blue in the foreground to darken off this mix a bit. Using a really large mop brush. For the sky, I'm going to go with cerulean. Nice thick cerulean blue running through everything. That. Okay. Kind of just leaving the boundary of that building a bit. But if it does mix in some areas, you're fine. Okay. I'd like to put a bit of this blue also in the windows. A bit in here, a bit in there maybe. There. At the moment, all I'm doing is just putting in colors, not really much details at all. The shadows will come later once this wash is dried off. Though I did imply some very light shadows on that building here on that right hand side. A bit of color in here for that door or whatever. I'm going to put in some basic colors for the figures as well. So I can put in maybe some brown for this one. I can go in and grab some purple. We can mix in a bit of purple for this one here. Okay. Just have a bit of fun dropping in some colors. We can even invent some figures over in the background and things like that as well. Just some darker colors mixed in here. And it's just getting in like their shirts and what have you, bit of their clothing. Okay. The rest of it we can put in afterwards with a bit more finesse. Okay. I'll give this a really quick dry. Okay, I've given that a quick dry now. It's time to go in with a large sort of shadow shape for everything, and I want to again use that larger brush, and I'm thinking, how can I simplify this? How can I make this this shadow pattern as easy as I can? And I think what we can do, it starts off here. It's like this large shadow that cuts across there, comes across the back of some of these buildings, all here, cuts across that building, and then kind of covers this one a little bit. So I think I can go and mix something like that up and get it all in one go. It's a bit of a simplification, and we need a lot of paint for this. I'm using a bit of brown and a bit of purple mixed together to get a lovely dark sort of wash, kind of like a dark purpley sort of wash. Just move down the paper a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to start off perhaps on this one. Okay. A little. This is going to be a little darker, but not too dark. Section like that. I have a smaller mop brush as well. I can like indicate these little shutters here in some of the buildings there. Just while I do this wash at the same time, get it in more efficiently and quickly, I can just indicate a bit of that. Okay. There. Okay, good. This is going to be all pretty dark. This whole section of the building goes all the way up, comes down. Yeah. Yeah. Soften it off a little bit down the base. Okay. More of this color, purple and brown, or blue and brown. Ultramarine and brown also works quite well together, just to get in a darker sort of color. And I'm going to just get it in something like this. Okay. A shadow, just a large kind of shadow shape, and I can just leave some of those windows blue as well for interest. Shadows that are a bit more jagged and what have you, like that. And the left side of the building, which I'm going to go in, let's just simplify that down with a large sort of shape like this, large shadow shape like that. Connect that onto that side. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There. Soften this shape at the back, this shadow at the back a bit more. Right. Go cutting around those figures a little. Good. And of course this one, a bit darker. Pretty large brush I'm using actually for this whole scene. Okay. That is looking decent. Now, thinking also with the foreground, a bit of darkness running through on the ground would be good, just to match it up with what's going on up there. Got the light kind of coming in. It's almost from the top left-hand corner. So this building is probably casting shadow towards that left-hand side. Bit of purple, bit of neutral tint, bit of brown, and carry on. Try to get in a bit of this color in on the ground. Just lighter, but cutting around some of these doors and figures as well. Larger brush, I think, would be easier for this. darker down the front. Trying to just get an indication of perhaps some bits of light coming through in areas like that. More darkness here down the front. Okay, so time to put in some little details and stuff like that. So, you know, again with the windows and what have you, how can I go ahead and do this? We can just use a little round brush. And I'm picking up a really dark sort of pigment here, just some neutral tint, and just trying to put in some details for the windows. Okay, a little bit of that edge of the window beneath as well. That top of the building, there's these little, like this there. This one here, a bit of darkness on top, drawing out some of the details. Just darker running through that shadow. Same with this side there. Color there. Light, be like a light wash. Good. There's a little balcony as well in here. There's some of this I can't really do at the moment. I've got to wait for the paint to dry off a little bit before I can get some sharper sort of edges in here. But some of it I can do. So for example, this bit here runs down the edge of the building. I can do like that. A bit of the contours of this building and have you textures and things that can be done, but some of it you can't. Some of it you've got to wait if you want to get in sharper sort of edges. Okay, like that bit I was able to get some sharpness in there. Got a little round brush I can play with. Get in some of this balcony, dry off that brush, and a bit of get in a few of these little bits like that. Using these round brushes, these not round brushes, mop brushes, very well today. A bit of dry brush perhaps in here. Just some textures on the building, maybe. It's a little lamp. Yep. There we go. That kind of looks like a lamp. There. Looking for other bits and pieces that I can indicate. I'm going to drop in some potential windows on the sides of these buildings here, so just a bit of darkness, bit of this here, edges of that building here in the background, because it is quite soft back there. A few more bits and pieces. How can I, looking at ways to simplify down, get in some of this detail without without too much effort. Now we've got to find these umbrellas again. There's one. Almost lost it. There's another one in here as well. That's your main one over here. Getting in a bit of that door frame behind. Something like that, just a bit of a door. Okay. Looking for more places where I can work some bits of darker color into this kind of balcony. Like that. That's, in fact, in here at the bottom, the doors or whatever are pretty dark. It's turning into quite an almost like an abstract kind of scene, isn't it? But it's amazing how little detail I've actually put in here. Just the bare minimum. But I'm really thinking of each brushstroke that I put in here. I'm really making sure that it's not, that it has a place. All has to kind of count. Scene like this. Okay. Good. Really the last little finishing touches are just the figures, maybe some birds or something up the top in some sections that you can go ahead and add in, like these little birds flying around up the top. Don't need to put them in, I just thought, why not? Let's just add in a few up the top there. But I'll put in some legs or whatever of these figures that are just kind of going into the ground like this. It's almost melting into the ground. Some of them anyway. Couple there. There's one that's walking this way into the scene. Couple here that maybe just standing around or doing something. Of course, you know, these little tables or whatever here, quick indication of what might be going on. Put in a little bit of warm color for the faces. Drop that in. A bit of a brown as well. That. The shadows, I hadn't really bothered too much with the figures, but you know, you could do this kind of thing. I can just make a bit of shadow going towards the left here, just to follow that light source, I suppose, from above. Okay, getting there. Yeah, I think I'm almost finished with this. It's just putting in a few of these edges of the windows, and you can really repeat all the steps in this, but slower, and in terms of detailing, working on more like the little details as well. It really depends on how much detail you want to put in. I think today I've gone super loose with my painting. I don't know why, but um, definitely a lot looser than than my usual sort of style. I'm gonna remove the tape on this. Just bring out the two paintings that have gone through. A little bit of gouache is also good if you have some of it to help bring out highlights and areas that you want to kind of recover. It's always a good idea. Okay, let's just take off that. Once you give it a dry too, there's a bit of paint still left on the top of this. Oop. Okay, so I think I'm done for today. Certainly, I think I've done a lot more detailed kind of work. Um, but for a couple of hours, I think, especially I do like this first one. I like the contrast between the lights and the darks. The only thing I probably would have liked to do more was perhaps taken a bit more time to add some extra details on the scenes themselves. Maybe tried like a line and wash version of this. So yeah, that would have been another thing to do. A line and wash scene of these two. I think you'll be able to preserve a lot of the fine details on the windows, um, all that kind of stuff, especially even in the statues and things like that. I did go very loose today, but it just goes to show how few sort of brushstrokes you need to imply a scene like this, and I guess the general feel of a location. So I'll hang around for a little bit if you guys have any other questions and comments. I'd love to hear from what you have to say. Mana says, I found the complete name of the place. It's Porta San Biago. Okay, cool. Yeah, I had no idea exactly what we were painting, but the location definitely, it was good that you and Keith managed to pick that up for us. Um, let's have a look. if there's any other. Carol says fascinating to watch. Thank you, Carol. And Gateway, love it. Thank you. Carol says brilliant. Thank you, and thank you so much. Not a problem. I'm happy to go through pretty much my process. I think like I said, I would have liked to take in a bit more, perhaps added a bit more detail to everything. I'll zoom in so you can have a look at some of my line work and some of my brush work here. So I like this stuff here over on the right hand side. You can see where, I've actually done a lot of wet and wet work here. Bits where we've scrubbed off between the sky and then the building as well to create a bit of softness in here. Textures. It's really 2 washes that we use for these 2 scenes. And, the first wash, always I tend to start with the lighter colors and get those lighter colors in. And once we're, even with the blues here, these are kind of like lighter blues. And then you go in, wait for that to dry, get the shadow in afterwards, and it kind of looks like here. Oops, what's going on? Contrast is just changing around a little bit. But you can see here how it looks like a bit of the shadow is caught onto the window, but then you still got a bit of the light from the sky as well there. So it's something a little bit more different. Now these figures are pretty basic, and these soft shadows here, you can put in little shadows running to the left on the ground, especially to indicate that same light source that's coming from that top right hand side. And I can still work on it now. I can go back into it, play around with a few bits and pieces. But as you can see, it doesn't take all that much to indicate a person walking. A lot of this was done wet into wet and with 2 layers. And pretty much the same process that I follow in all of my scenes and all my paintings. So if you enjoyed this, demo, I do have a lot of additional content on Patreon, and you can check it out, patreon.com/Watercolour Mentor. I also have a website that you can find a lot of additional free resources on there, watercolormentor.com, and just different workshops that I've run in the past that you can go through and pick up on and have a bit of fun learning and painting along with me and with the rest of the viewers. So again, I'll probably just wait for a little bit to see if there's any other questions. Let me just bring up the chats. Thank you, Manez. This is the first reference picture photo. It's spectacular. It is, yeah, it's amazing. Amazing photograph. There's just caught my eye straight away and had to paint it. What kind of paper do you recommend for practicing? Okay, so if you can, it sounds a bit it sounds a bit funny, but if you can, use the same paper that you practice on for when you do your more serious paintings, as they say. And the reason why I say that is so that you can get used to the texture, the absorbency of your paper, how it reacts to water. And sometimes what I do is if I've got paintings that I felt maybe didn't work out so well, I'll just turn them over to the other side and do some practice on that. So if you're kind of running out of paper, you can do that. But I always recommend practicing on the same paper where possible. But if you don't have that, you can always use any type of watercolor paper you have available, even cellulose paper, because that reacts the closest to cotton watercolor paper. Of course, just use what you've got, but I find once you've tried cotton watercolor paper, it's difficult to go back. You just get so used to it, and there's a lot of effects, wet and wet effects, that you can only do on that sort of paper. Righto. Carol says I struggle with perspective. Yeah, perspective is tricky, and there's a lot of videos that you can watch on it. So 1 point perspective, 2 point perspective, probably the ones that you'll end up using the most. Especially 1 point perspective. If you learn that, you should be all good. So if you can Google that, and you know, have a bit of a read up about it as well. But practicing an observation of a scene in front of you, I think that's probably the best way to learn perspective. Often it doesn't click until you actually practice and apply that knowledge. So to the context of your painting, what I'm trying to say. Just and speaking on perspective, these are some little quick perspective lines I thought I'd add to the bottom of the paper. Sometimes helps also to add some little scrubs and marks and stuff on the paper. Okay. It's not a masterpiece by any standard, but certainly I think it's got a kind of consistency in there that I like, and a freshness. Very soft shadows, and definitely not overworked. Definitely not overworked. You can fault me on that. Yeah, I guess the only other thing I would say is, you know, little highlights and stuff you can add on at the end. I don't have any white gouache right on me at the moment, but I probably add a bit of that, a little bit of that gouache on there. But once you get the hang of the process of painting these sort of scenes, you can basically take any reference picture and pull it apart and do this same sort of using this same sort of style in two washes. Question from Gateway: Is the quality of the colors help prevent the watercolors from spreading as it did in the shade when using the wet on wet technique? Some watercolors have an additive called oxgal, and oxgal encourages a paint to spread on the paper. Some paints have more of it than others. Some paints don't even have it at all. So I think with the paints I'm using, the Daniel Smith colors, they do have a little bit of oxgal in them. But there's other paints like Magella paints, and they don't really spread all that much because they don't have oxgal. I don't think they do anyway from last time I checked. So for beginners, some beginners really like using paints without oxgal. Same with professional painters, because they may want to prioritize accuracy, and they maybe don't use too many wet and wet watercolor techniques. They don't want the paint to spread too much. So it pays to do your research to see, in terms of the paint that you're using, whether it contains oxgal or not. So I hope that answers your question, Gateway. And thank you, Manaz. Not a problem. And yeah, like I said, when I started painting watercolors, I used whatever materials I had. I had cellulose paper. I even used what else did I use? I think I just used a normal sketchbook. But as speaking, artist to artist, I think you really benefit more if you practice on some cotton watercolor paper, if you can get your hands on it, because it takes your watercolors to the next level, allows you to do things that's not possible on other bits of paper, allows you to layer, get beautiful granulating effects, especially the wet and wet effects. They work so much better on cotton watercolor paper, so I can't recommend it enough. There's many brands. Just go with the stuff that's perhaps more affordable in your country. Let's have a look. if there's any more questions. Thank you, Rosa. Rosa has loved the loose style. Appreciate it. I've certainly gone a lot looser than I usually do in this demo. And this weekend as well, I'm going to have a portrait class, another portrait class. The last one was pretty popular, and I wanted to do a close-up portraiture portrait. That's what I'm trying to say. So I think that's about it, everyone. So thank you all for joining. I'm going to go find myself some dinner now. And if you're around on Saturday to for the other live demo, definitely pop along. Love to see you there. Really hope you got something useful out of the demonstrations today. And I will catch you